Dicta is the plural version of the word dictum, which is Latin for something said, and is a saying or a maxim, which is an expression of a general truth or principle. In this story I will be discussing the dicta that express what I have learned thus far in my life and that I carry with me as a general truth. To begin, I have a photograph of my papa. He is my grandfather on my mother's side and my favorite person in the whole world. I begin my story with my papa because not only does he mean very much to me, but he is the inspiration for my story. He had dicta that he created and passed down to his children and grandchildren, and some of his same dicta will be presented in my story. The first dictum I have chosen to present is this: be honest, be true, be humble, be you. I don't recall the experience that led me to create the saying, but I found myself saying it over and over in my head, and it just stuck with me. I think perhaps it's because I've always defended the things I loved, and it never bothered me if someone thought that what I like is silly, weird, or childlike. For example, it isn't typical for a girl in her mid-20s to love roller skating, but I do, and I always will. I think it's important to be honest with yourself. Don't let what others think ruin how you feel about something. You have to be yourself if you want to be happy. The next dictum is BG, DG, DNH, or be good, do no harm. This is one of my papa's sayings, and one he would always write about at the bottom of his letters to me. It was almost one of those things that parents say to their children, like be careful or make good choices. This was something that my papa thought was important to have repeated to his grandchildren, a way of living that we should live up to. It speaks of so much. Be a good person, do good things with the time you have, affect others in a positive way. I chose this picture I took of my brother-in-law and his hand laying over top of my nephew when he was born. It reminded me of the hope parents have for their children to be good, and do no harm. This dictum comes from a class I took on moral philosophy. Virtue only exists because it is tested. Opened my mind to thinking about experiences as its challenges to be overcome. The goal is to come out of an experience as a better or more virtuous person. It's one of those sayings that makes you think about the concepts of good and bad in a different light. The only reason there is good in the world is because there is bad to compare it to. That is a very interesting thought. I chose this picture because we all have good and bad inside of us. This can be seen through the two versions of myself. We all have choices, and it's those choices that define us. No perfection this side of heaven is another saying of my papa's. I wish I knew the experiences he had that led him to come up with this saying. The reason this saying stuck with me is because a major part of my life is making mistakes. It is important for me to remember that everyone makes mistakes and it is okay to make them. The important thing is to learn from them. I have added this picture of myself walking on railroad tracks because it reminds me of how people are always trying to follow a certain path in life, walk a straight line to reach their goals. But it is inevitable that we may derail from that path every once in a while, and perhaps even make an entirely new path. You are above frustration comes from my own personal experiences. There are times when I become so frustrated with things that I think are not going my way that I feel as though I lose myself or I lose sight of the good things that are happening in my life. This next picture is a picture of me at the beach and reminds me that I need to keep in mind that all good things come in time, and I should not waste my life worrying about what I don't have and enjoy what I do have. I need to relax and appreciate and focus on the good that is happening in my life. Change has a higher probability of making you happy and teaching you something new. This comes from my experiences with major life changes. I've never been one who enjoys change. In fact, I am usually very wary of change. I have learned, however, that most of the time, change, even though sometimes devastating, can have a hugely positive effect in the end. This is a picture of a winery I went to when I visited my brother in Texas. It reminds me that there are many doors with which to walk through, even after some are closed. To make a successful relationship, you must have 3 ingredients: laughter, trust, and communication. From my experiences with relationships, both my own and ones I've observed, I have learned that if a relationship is missing any of these 3 ingredients I listed, they will fail. Here's a picture of my parents. They are very important to me, and I love them very much. Their relationship has created a world in which I know laughter, trust, communication, and love. They have taught me that making a loved one proud is just as important as being there for them. To learn is to live. My life has always been centered around learning. Learning how to be a better person, learning how to accept, learning how to be happy. I chose to say that learning is to live instead of to live is to learning, because if you are not learning, you are not living. What makes life interesting and worthwhile is the search for knowledge and experience. This is a picture of me ziplining in Puerto Rico. It shows me gaining a new experience and learning how to enjoy life. When it feels as though the whole world has turned its back on you, there will always be your family by your side. I came up with this because even through all of my insecurities, I know that my family will always be there to help and guide me when I need it. With any problem I have had and with any frustration or fear, I have always been able to turn to my family for reassurance and support. Here is a picture of my family at the Alamo in San Antonio, Texas. Even the smallest light shines bright in the darkness. Ever since I heard this quote somewhere, I have always remembered that even the smallest act of kindness matters, that everything you do has an effect on the world. I have always remembered that even when things seem terrible and out of focus, if you have hope for the future, you can get through it. This is a picture of my brother and his wife Emily. I took this picture before they were married, and it seems as though they are looking into the future. He who knows that he knows not, knows much. This quote is important to me because it reminds me that I do not know everything and that I am susceptible to fault. It reminds me that I can be wrong even when I think I'm right. It reminds me of the importance of asking for and giving forgiveness. I like this quote because my papa was always trying to learn new things, and through his example he taught me to be the same way. This comic strip says, "If people sat outside and looked at the stars each night, I bet they'd live a lot differently." How so? Well, when you look into infinity, you realize that there are more important things than what people do all day. I chose this comic strip because my papa liked to find clippings from the newspaper to send to me that taught him something. This comic strip taught me to take a step back and realize that we don't know everything. Sometimes the small things that frustrate us really shouldn't matter so much. When I was younger, I was big on asking questions about life. This comic strip reminds me of my thoughts as a teenager. This is a picture of my papa and me at his hometown in Hudson, New York. We are having a backyard picnic with my dad's family. To end my story of my personal addicted, the last quote I will share is one that I found after my papa died. It says, "They have achieved success who have lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who have gained the respect of intelligent people and the love of little children, who have filled their niche and accomplished their task, who have never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty, or failed to express it, who have left the world better than they found it, whether an improved poppy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul, who have always looked for the best in others and given them the best they had, whose life was an inspiration, whose memory a benediction." Thank you for watching my video.